last year.
Yeah, Gaz, that man is Leon Davis, and he has tonight bought into this Collingwood saga, and he's revealed that he would still be at Collingwood if Mick Malthouse was still at Collingwood. We've been trying to get hold of Leon since he left the club last October, and that was after his 2011 All-Australian form of that particular season. We just wanted to find out why he did leave, because there's been a lot of stories flying around. As you're about to see, there was a fair bit going on behind the scenes, more than what we were led to believe by certain people who claim to be close to the story. Davis spoke pretty openly and at length to us when we caught up with him in Perth during the week, and we're going to present this story tonight in 3 stages. We'll start with the answer to what he thought of what he made of Collingwood's low financial offer to him to stay a pie in 2012.
Yeah, personally, other blokes might have stayed under those conditions, but for me personally, look, I had a lot of persuasion within myself to come back home, and it was something that I was always going to do after footy, is come back to Perth and whatnot. But yeah, look, for some others it would have been okay for them to take that reduction, but for me, I wasn't comfortable doing that. So yeah, I made the decision to come home, and I wasn't happy to stay there with the contract put on the table for myself.
So the offer was significantly less than he was getting last year.
Yeah, it was, Gaz. He was on significantly more than $300,000 in 2011. He was asked to take a contract that was going to get him about $200,000 in 2012. But we'll move on from the contract situation to the Mick Malthouse situation, and as we know, the replacement plan for him to be replaced by Nathan Buckley. In what we're about to see now, Leon addresses what the Collingwood players were talking about and thinking of the time in that transition from Malthouse to Buckley. He also, when you see this grab here, his first response is a response to the direct question, would you still be at Collingwood if Mick Malthouse was at Collingwood?
It's a tricky one. I'm pretty confident I would be. Like, Mick's always made me feel welcome, and I'm not taking nothing away from Bucks and the rest of the footy club, of course. They've always been great in making me feel welcome down at the football club. But yeah, me and Mick sort of had that special bond where he took me in as a young 18-year-old when I first got over there, and really did make sure that I felt comfortable and welcome down at the club back then. So yeah, look, in answering your question, I'm pretty confident that if Mick was still around at the Collingwood Football Club, there was a pretty good chance I'd still be there, yep.
When it was mooted last year, Leon, during the year, that there were some players who were even contemplating going to the board to try and get Mick to stay. Can you take us through what your take on that situation was?
Yeah, look, I can only speak for myself, mate. I always wanted Mick to stay and coach on. I'm not taking nothing away from Bucks and his aspirations of being a league coach. Look, I just had a great relationship with Mick, and you know, of course, being one of the all-time greatest coaches ever, you know, I wanted to see him stay on, and obviously stay on at Collingwood.
So is he saying that he would have stayed had Mick Malthouse retained the coaching job, or even as the director of coaching?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, Gaz, that it would have been just staying at the footy club. Coach, he is what he wanted him to be.
Regardless of the contract that was offered?
No, I think the contract comes into play too, because he did say, as we saw in at the top of the interview there, that it wasn't financially viable for him to stay. Now, he went back to Perth, not to stay there ultimately, but to contemplate his future, and no other reasons he ended up staying in Perth because of the contract and Mick. But we'll move on now to what Collingwood has been saying for some time, and that is that Leon had left for reasons other than footy, and Eddie Maguire was saying that as recently as this week on his own radio program on Triple M. We'll get Leon's take on what Eddie had to say during the week. So we'll hear Eddie first on his radio show on Triple M. Leon was aware of those comments before we got to him in Perth. We played those comments back to him, and then you'll hear Eddie's version first, and then Leon's response to it.
I was in the grand final room after the game. I may not have been in the match committee room, but I actually watched the footy. I spoke to Leon Davis. Leon was going for every other reason other than football. Let me tell you that. And whether Mick was going to be there or not, I don't think it would have made any difference whatsoever.
Yeah, look, obviously it was fresh after an AFL grand final, and yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on, and the disappointment of that. But yeah, look, my memory's pretty fuzzy on what happened after the grand final and the game after and straight after the game and stuff like that. So yeah, look, I'm not too sure if I did or if I didn't. I can't recall it.
Leon Davis there being very diplomatic in his response to that question. He certainly told several people who have told us that there was no such conversation, Gaz. But as you can see, a whole lot more going on behind the scenes than just simply Leon wanting to go back to Perth for family reasons.
Lloyd, I'm going to ask you, what have you made of the week and the Collingwood Footy Club and the situation they find themselves in? Nathan Buckley, new coach, injury problems, Wayne Carey's floated an unrest amongst the playing group. You've had Mick, who's just doing his job as a paid commentator. How have you seen it all?
Yeah, I think that most people in the industry would say that it doesn't surprise them that this was bound to happen. I think that Mick, you could tell towards the end that he would have loved to have stayed on. Whether that was the case at the time when he signed that contract, he probably wouldn't have thought that they'd win a flag and lose a grand final. I think that, but they both had their say. I think Mick and Eddie, and I think come Monday morning, or when it was all said and done, I reckon they both probably regretted some of the things that they'd said. And I think the one that's come out best is Nathan Buckley. I don't put much credence on Wayne Carey's comments at all. I think that there's a lot of players that don't love their coach that they've got, but that doesn't mean that they go out there and just roll over and don't play for the coach. I think that there's some, say for example, Swan and Tarrant and those types, they're polar opposites to what Nathan Buckley is, but you'd expect that they'd be professional enough to just go out there and do the job. I think the big question mark on Collingwood is their hunger. I was part of a team in the year 2000 that lost one game. We lost the grand final in 01 and we lost our way, we lost our hunger, we weren't doing the little things that we should have. And I'm watching Collingwood against Carlton on Friday night, I saw exactly that. I love Dale Thomas as a player, but I saw Arnfield want the ball more than him 2 or 3 times. And I've seen that from a number of Collingwood players. So I think that's more their concern. None of this other aspects that's going on, their side issues, it's more Carlton wanted the ball more than them the other night, and that's the main thing. That's their biggest issue at the moment.
Oh, the Saturn hammer, hasn't he? Just isn't he a star?
Very nicely said. Very nice.